that. Okay, I think we're live. Am I sat? Am I sat at the correct distance? Oh, sorry, it's been a manic week, guys. Probably can't hear me if I talk this quietly either, can you? Okay. Compose myself, get ready. I think it's all live. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the stream. My name's Alex. This is Regulus Blues, and this week's song is Bobo Thomas, Catfish Blues. I wish I was a catfish. Parentheses. Now it's not his song, so to speak. Anybody who knows their blues knows Catfish is arguably, it's like the Yesterday or Bridge Over Troubled Water of the blues world. It's like, it's been covered by everyone. In fact, some of the covers, as I'll come on to later, you probably wouldn't even realise at first, with their name changes and slight riff developments over the years. But a great deal of some classic rock, blues, well, mostly rock and blues, but a great deal of classic rock and blues songs come from this one source, and I find it amazing. Interestingly, this version harks back to a sort of older style of playing it. It's very Delta, very Delta. Even though it was recorded in 1951, the same year as another version of the song by, back to Muddy Waters again, his version he renamed Rolling Stone, and if you don't know that, I'll play that to you in a little bit on the old Sparrow. But his version went on to influence you know, several generations of guitarists, and this version by Bobo Thomas, to be honest, it's quite unique in the way that it's played. Most people, if you say Catfish Blues, they'd probably think of the Petway version, Robert Petway version, which is a good version. He's a good guitarist, but this version by the name I found for him was Andrew Thomas. I'll get back to the story of this particular recording shortly, but yeah, Andrew, Bobo or Slim Thomas, depending on who you talk to. His version is very sort of gritty, down dirty sort of way of playing it, and to be honest, I think this version, whether or not this is the first version inspired somewhat by Muddy Waters' version, I don't know, or if this, along with Muddy Waters' version, sort of held the inspiration for the future songs, because it is very different from how Petway plays it and how I've seen other people play it as well. So, where shall we begin? So Catfish Blues, parentheses, I wish I was a catfish, in some places. This version by, sorry, let me start that again. Catfish Blues, the rendition performed by Bobo Thomas, sometimes noted as Elmore James, but we'll explain the reason for that in a moment, was recorded by Lillian McMurray of Trumpet Records in Jackson, Mississippi, and it was recorded on the 24th of June 1951, so it's a little bit later than the other songs we've been doing, but it's a very, like I said, it's still a very gritty Delta blues song, and it's the only recording by Bobo Thomas, and his name was almost lost to time, because due to a circumstance, he ended up with Elmore James's name on both sides of the record. It was a split record, Dust My Broom by Elmore James on side A, and Catfish Blues by Bobo Thomas on side B. However, both sides of the record state Elmore James, so it's almost the case that it was a lost detail, and I'm not sure at what point his name was reinstated in history, but yeah, there was I don't know if it was just the first pressing or if it was every record, but for a time people thought that it was a Elmore James song. So being that this is the only song by Bobo Thomas, there's not very much to say in the way of history for him. However, Lillian McMurray and Trumpet Records of Jackson in Mississippi, where he was recorded, do have quite an interesting history, and despite this being his only song, the history that does go with this recording is actually pretty, out of all the stories for songs that I've been looking at, it's a pretty interesting story. It's a weird set of circumstances. So where should we start? So Trumpet Records was a fairly short-lived but quite pivotal independent record label, as I said, based out of Jackson, which is, I'm not sure if Jackson's the capital, state capital, but it's a very large city now in Mississippi, and it's towards the southern end of the state, whereas Clarksdale, we've been talking about before, is in the north towards Memphis. Jackson is further south, and she was married to a guy called Willard McMurray, and he was a furniture store owner, and she's about 30 years old in 1950-51, and she's in the back room of this store that he's just bought, and she finds some records. In fact, I'll get this story up so I don't get anything wrong. She finds some records in the back room, and she starts playing them, and she's like, oh, this is good. And being that, you know, they own a store, she thinks, well, perhaps I could sell records here as well, and she starts to sell records. They get quite popular. And eventually she decides she wants to record more music like this, so good old Delta Blues. And it's the first example I've ever seen of like a real grassroots independent record label like that. I don't know if it is the first, I'm not saying that because I don't know, but it's the first example that I can recall seeing. So it was based on 309 North Farish Street in Jackson, sorry, I keep wanting to say Jefferson, in Jackson, and it was attached, whether or not it was the front side or the back side, I don't know, I assume it's the back side of the shop. It was attached to her husband's radio repair shop, and the name of that I did have somewhere, but I don't think I wrote it down, never mind. So she and her husband decided to found a record label for or at least a recording studio, and that became Trumpet Records. So the interesting story, in fact, no, before I go on to that, it's worth noting as well, Trumpet Records is the first place that Elmore James ever recorded, as well as Sonny Boy Williamson II. In fact, he plays harmonica as the accompaniment to Bobo Thomas in the recording, along with Leonard Ware on bass. And unfortunately, like I said, it was a short-lived label, because by 1956, Elmore James and in fact both Elmore James and Sonny Boy Williamson, the two main stars of the record label, moved north to Chicago, as did a lot of black musicians at the time. Well, a lot of African Americans moved north to Chicago at the time because they followed where the work would be, and the South was just sort of dying as far as commerce goes. So they go north. It spells the end of Trumpet Records, and to be honest, I don't know the rest of the McMurray's history. They were posthumously honoured with a historical marker at the former recording studio, and the family received a plaque to go with the historical marker. She herself died 1999, so she's been dead a while. and she was born in 1921. So yeah, she was about 30 when she set the store up with her husband. So the interesting thing with this one in particular, Bobo Thomas. So the first whiff I got of a story for this song is in the description of a YouTube video. The video itself, there's no pictures of Bobo Thomas that are, you know, public knowledge, that are identifiable as him. You know, his whatever family he might have had may probably have some pictures of him, but publicly there is literally nothing on this guy apart from this one track that he recorded. So but this one track has such an interesting story. So in the notes to this video on YouTube, this is the only recording ever made by Bobo Thomas. Legend has it that Lillian McMurray, not her name, Lillian McMurray of Trumpet Records, recorded this song by him and then loaned him a guitar and amplifier to take home and practice with him in order to come back the next day and record some more. Bobo didn't come back. Stories vary as to whether or not Mrs. McMurray's equipment was ever recovered, but apparently Bobo disappeared. There are no photos of Bobo Thomas, but I include a couple of early ones of Sonny Boy Williamson II, yeah, since he was played harmonica accompaniment. The original pressing of the Trumpet 78 has Dust My Broom by Elmore James on the other side. Both sides were billed as Elmore James, and I don't know if this was as a result of Bobo skipping out with the equipment. That's not the case that actually happened, and the story does have another twist. But yeah, potentially because they didn't. He essentially did disappear. Lillian McMurray didn't know where he went, and he obviously had her amp and guitar, so wherever he was, she would have liked to have known where he was, but he was unable to let her know. So being that she had no forwarding address or any other information for him, she felt she didn't really have any choice other than to just label them both as Elmo James or Elmore James. However, the rest of the story I found on, again, great website for him, weeniecampbell.com, where I found a lot of information on Charlie Patton and the different keys and tunings that he used. This page hasn't loaded properly. Where are the words? That's what I need, the sweet, sweet words. Okay, hopefully I can remember. Reading this stuff under this YouTube video sorry, I've got to highlight it because it's the same colour as the background for some reason, so it's invisible. Piqued my interest. So he's talking about the story that I just said from that YouTube video description, and somebody is able to correct him, or at least get some closure on the story in the comments. And what basically happened is months later, after the recording session, Mrs. McMurray is contacted by the local police, I think, who have her, I think it's that way around and not the other, they have her guitar and amp, and she's like, oh, okay, yeah, that I loaned it to a musician that works for me, and I haven't seen him in months. And it turned out that the police just assumed that Bobo Thomas had stolen the guitar and the amp and just locked him up, and obviously him saying, you know, they're on loan to me, you probably gave them the name and everything, it didn't wash with them, they locked him up. I don't know how long he spent in jail, but it was long enough for her to press the records with Elmore James's name on both sides. So eventually she is actually the one who bailed him out as well. So she finds out, bails him out, and whether or not he got to keep the guitar and amp, I don't know. I'm sure it's said in this post on weeniecampbell.com, but like I said, the page hasn't loaded properly, and I really cannot read all of that with it's like quadruple spaced, and I've got to highlight it so I can see it, so there's not much point. But the long story short is Bobo Thomas was located. Mrs. McMurray bailed him out, and I think after that he decided, you know, musician's life wasn't for him, which is a shame, because that one track, apparently it was a one take. He sat down with Sonny Boy and Leonard Ware. They recorded that one take, and it sounds sweet. It's another one of those legendary recordings, which I've tried to go for songs that are in that sort of caliber, and that haven't already been tabbed by someone else. Really surprised me, some of these having not been tabbed. The last one hadn't been tabbed. This one's never been tabbed before. I'm the only person with a Bobo Thomas tab on the whole website, because obviously he only did one song. Obviously Country Blues had been tabbed, but it was tabbed in standard tuning. Very strange. It's in open tuning. So what else can I tell you history-wise about either Trumpet or Bobo? Interestingly enough, when I looked into Bobo, or Slim Thomas, as he's alternately called, I think Lillian McMurray called him Slim Thomas in an interview, but obviously Bobo Thomas is the name they have on record for him as a performer. When I looked him up, there was a Slim Thomas who performed in a 1942 short that was Tain't No Thing, or something, Tain't Good Legs, I don't know. Whether or not that's the same Slim Thomas, I don't know, or if he was the inspiration for Bobo Thomas's name, I don't know, but it's interesting. Yes, same name, same guy, perhaps not. So the actual song Catfish Blues, as I said, it really is one of those. It is a blues standard that has been covered by absolutely everybody, and the idea of animal imagery in blues, again, is something that you see everywhere, from Catfish to Howling Wolf, Mean Black Cat Moan, Rattlesnake Blues, two Charlie Patton songs. There is something very animalistic and raw. I guess it was a good connection for them to make between animals and the blues. Catfish, the actual fish, obviously is a popular dish in the southern states because you've got catfish on the coast. But it didn't actually appear in a blues song until Jim Jackson's Kansas City Blues in 1928, and then it was just sort of part of a verse. If you want to see a full list of all the songs that have been influenced by Catfish Blues, or sort of follow a thread of development over the years, there is a playlist on my channel called Evolution. If you have a look at that, it's got, I don't know how many songs are actually in it, but there is a large list of songs which either have the same riff, the same lyrics, or similar lyrics have been used from another song and brought into the fold. They're all included, and in fact, if I just have a look for you now in my playlists. Where have playlists gone? There we go. So Evolution. I think I've put them in about as chronological an order as I can. So the earliest one I got there is Blind Lemon Jefferson, Broken Hungry. Now this isn't, strictly speaking, this isn't a Catfish precedent, but the version of Catfish that we're looking at, which is the Bobo Thomas one, he does take some lyrics from the song Ragged and Dirty, Broken Hungry, which is one of the Willie Browns. But this one, which again is going to be a cover of this original from 1926 by Blind Lemon Jefferson. So there's how many videos? 43. So there's 43 different songs that I was able to find. I'll just list some of them now for you. So Broken Hungry, as I said, it doesn't mention the Catfish, but it's got verses that are later used in different versions of Catfish. Kansas City Blues Part 3, Jim Jackson, from, it says 1927. There's another one below it, Kansas City Blues, but by William Harris Alonzo, or aka Alonzo Boone, that's 1928. Broken Hearted, Ragged and Dirty 2, Sleepy John Estes. Robert Petway, Catfish Blues. Deep Blue Sea Blues by Tommy McLennan. Ragged and Dirty by William Brown, that's 1942. Then we get to Muddy Waters. In February of 1950, he releases Rolling Stone, which you should recognise, hopefully. Let me introduce Sally to you. I don't think I've ever played this guitar on this channel before. I've had this guitar for years. Obviously, I've just been doing acoustic stuff recently, so I've had no need to use it in a video. But hey, why not? It's in standard, and Rolling Stone's in standard. I could play it in Spanish. I have tabbed it for Spanish, but just for ease, I'll show you in. It's not plugged in. Hopefully, it's loud enough. So if you've been watching the channel a while, you might have heard me jam that out a few times, maybe on the cigar box guitar. And if you're very perceptive or a big fan of rock, or you might already know, you'll know some of the songs that are coming up on this list that that directly stem from Rolling Stone. So the first one comes just over a year later, and it's another Muddy Waters song. So Rolling Stone actually wasn't all that successful when he released it, so he slowed it down a bit more, put it up by a semitone, and re-released it with different lyrics the next year, called Still a Fool. Any Rolling Stones fans might recognise that from, is it the Beggar's Banquet album? I'm not sure. But they, obviously Rolling Stones, big Muddy Waters fans. The name Rolling Stones comes from Rolling Stone. Next one to come after that is Bobo Thomas, Catfish Blues. Fall of 1958, Larry Johnson releases Catfish Blues. Robert Curtis Smith in 1960. Lightning Hopkins releases his version in July of 61. Skip James is recorded at probably the Newport Folk Festival in 1964, playing Catfish Blues. Now, this is what I was fishing for, the next one. Jimi Hendrix, 1967, Catfish Blues. So Catfish Blues for Hendrix forms the basis of the long bluesy version, in fact really the main riff of Voodoo Child, whether it's the short version or the heavy version or the bluesy version. And I think that's just such a brilliant, it's my favourite evolutionary thread in the history of music, really. Jimi Hendrix, Muddy Waters, all these other blues classics, even, you know, not all Mississippi blues. Lightning Hopkins is a Texas bluesman. Yeah, this thread coming from 1926 to 67, I guess, when he started playing that. That's already 40 years. Then we've got the Rolling Stones, Still a Fool. Their version, I'm not really a big fan of the Rolling Stones version of that song. It kind of sounds a bit lackluster. It's not really, I don't know. I like the Stones. I'm not a massive fan of Mick Jagger and his voice, but there we go. Next one, 1972, the Groundhogs on BBC Radio play Still a Fool. I think that's So that is kind of based on the version the Stones play, but it's a little better, to be honest. From what I remember, I haven't heard that in a while. I'm just trying to remember. Next one's Casey Douglas from 1974, from Sharon, Mississippi, USA. Catfish Blues. Still a Fool by Eddie C. Campbell, 1977. Jack Owens and Bud Spires, Catfish Blues, 1978. Buddy Guy, Junior Wells, 1981, Catfish Blues. Stevie Ray Vaughan, Voodoo Child, 1989. Clarence Edwards, Still a Fool, 1990. Big Jack Johnson, 91, Catfish Blues. R.L. Burnside, so he's a hill country bluesman. His version of Catfish Blues is interesting. 94, question mark. Greg Allman, 97, Catfish Blues. Taj Mahal, 99. Ronnie Earl, 2000. There's a lot of recent versions. There's almost as many recent versions from the last 20 odd years as there are original classic versions of this song. It's had such longevity. It's brilliant. I mean, it's just the theme, really. It's not an identical song that's come down, although it somewhat seems to get more crystallized the older the song gets. I'd quite like to see people do different versions of a song like this. So where do we get to? Ronnie Earl in 2000, Catfish Blues. Hubert Sumlin. Now, he was Howlin' Wolf's guitarist. I don't think he was his first guitarist, but he was Howlin' Wolf's main squeeze as a guitarist throughout the 50s, the later part. R&B Jones, that's a pair of middle-aged men from somewhere in the southwest, actually, somewhere around here. Played Two Trains Running, Still a Fool. David Honeyboy Edwards, one of the last great bluesman alive, because he was very young when he got started, when a lot of the other blues players were already quite advanced in their years. So this is from 2010, and another one from April 2011, also by Honeyboy. Magic Slim, Still a Fool, 2011. Deleted video, I don't know whose that was. Maybe Corey. Is there a Corey someone? Yeah, I don't know. ZZ Top, Catfish Blues, 2013. Terry Harmonica Bean, Catfish Blues on harp. That's a good one. Mud Morganfield, that's actually one of Muddy Waters' sons. Still a Fool, Two Trains. That's from 2014. Gary Clark Jr., 2014, Catfish Blues. Othman Wahhabi, Catfish Blues, Black Snake Moan. So there he's incorporated some other elements of a different song together, and that's from 2015. And then Eric Gales on a July 4th performance, 2016. Keb Mo from Experience Hendrix, Oakland, 2017. So it's a very, very well covered song. Like I said, it's the Bridge Over Troubled Water or Yesterday of the blues world. So, is there anything else I can tell you? I think that might be it. So we might get on to... Sorry. Should probably turn my speakers off. Stop that happening again. So yeah, we should probably get on to actually learning the song. So, as usual, the link to the tab is in the description. I submitted it with plenty of time again this week, so it is up there on Ultimate Guitar. You should be able to find it even on a search, but like I said, the link is in the description if you want to learn it. I did tune up, but I will tune up again, because I have to say these pyramids do seem to detune quite a bit. So far, the best strings out of the three that I showed you in that last, not the last video, a few live streams ago, that the best one is probably the Harley Benton budget strings. At the moment, they definitely got the most wear for the longest time without becoming unplayable. I thought these pyramid ones would be pretty good, but I don't know if it's just because of the change in seasons, but they do go out of tune quite quickly, like by a whole semitone sometimes. So I tuned this up probably about an hour ago, so let's see if it's still in tune. mid to treble, yeah, mid to treble strings. Alright, now this one, if you're playing, again it's in Spanish, open G tuning, as all these videos have been. Make sure you can still see what we're doing. If you're in just standard open tuning, then you don't need to use a capo at all. I am, as usual, in flatted Spanish, so I'm putting a capo on the first fret, but if you're just in Spanish, you don't need to, because it is in, not G, but E. So that's something else I should talk about. So far we've been using G and then C and D. Sorry, D. So far we've been using G, C and D as the 1, 4, 5 chords because it's open G, so G would be the 1. But as I said in one of the Spanish tuning scales or chords videos, I can't remember which, you can actually, probably the scales video actually, sorry, let me move this, a footstool, there we go. You can actually play in another key other than G, and here is something in the key of E, just to show you that you can. So it's E as the 1 chord, then A as the 4, and B7 as the 5. And that is what this this song is all about. It's in E, so although it doesn't change up to A, if anything, it usually has open G in there as well, and maybe a bit of I think it's mostly just open G, to be honest. There's and then there's a little bit of sort of scale work like that, but as far as chords go, it's going to be this E chord, which is, I play it middle finger on the 6th string, 2nd fret, muffle the 5th string, ring finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string, index finger on the 1st fret of the 3rd string, 2nd string open, and the 1st string with your pinky finger on the 2nd fret. So that nice easy E minor for open, which is just the 2nd frets of the 6th, 4th and 1st strings, and then you just put your index finger on the 1st fret of the 3rd string, that's your E. Okay, so yeah, I just thought I'd mention that because so far we have literally just been playing in G. So the scale patterns for G are not what apply if you want to sort of jam in this song or work it out or anything, which usually we'd be going like because that's G, but because we're in E, it's a different shape, or rather it's the same shape but shifted down a couple of semitones. So the shape, and I'm not going to go into too much detail for this because we are literally just learning the tabs, but the shape for the scale for this is the 2nd and 5th on the 1st string, then the 5th and the 3rd on the 2nd string, and you'll notice that's unison note there, so you do have to sort of rethink the way you do your scale runs when you're in an open tuning. Just bear that in mind if you're used to standard tuning. So 5th and 2nd, 5th and 3rd, 4th and 2nd, 5th and 2nd, 4th and 2nd, 5th and 2nd. And I went through that quite fast because several of those strings are the same same pitch, different octave. So first, second, which is the second and fifth frets, is the same as the fourth and the fifth there, and the sixth strings. B is on its own. It's the only one that's tuned to B. And the other two strings, the third and the fifth, are both tuned to G, so they are both second and fourth frets. So 2 5 2 4 2 5 2 4 3 5 2 5 2 5 3 4 2 5 2 4 2 5 2. There you go. So that's E. So I'm not entirely convinced or sure if this is how Bobo Thomas played it, because it's possible some of the hammer-ons that I've got, which you can only really do, or really on that string, which you can only do with a dropped tuning, could just be done by the bass that's being played by Leonard Ware. But this is what I hear when I hear the song. This is how I think it's played. Just finish my tea first. That was stupid. Went down the wrong hole. Oh God. Okay. So, Catfish Blues, I Wish I Was a Catfish, the Andrew, Bobo or Slim Thomas rendition from 1951. Sorry, it's too far away. I'm getting old, I can't see that. Okay. And sorry, I had an alert come up. I shouldn't be concentrating on that. Okay, I'll take that from verse 2 again. I'm not doing very well tonight. Right, verse 3 over again. It's a very tricky bit, that. God, I might tab this. scroll. And that is Catfish Blues, I Wish I Was a Catfish, by Bobo Thomas, 1951. So we'll take a look at that in detail now. Turn the auto scroll off, as useless as it was. So I'm just trying to think forward in terms of how I'm going to break this down for the daily videos. So the intro is done once and that's on its own. Verse 1 is one way of playing the verse. Verse 2 is the same way, I think. Yep. So verse 1 and verse 2 are played. Oh no, there's a slight difference, yeah, so the first two lines of the verse are the same until verse 3 when it changes, and it keeps the same third section as verse 2. Meanwhile, the ending is the same in all of them. Yeah, so there's two different ways to play the first two bars. There's two different ways to play the third bar, and the fourth to sixth bars are almost always the same. And then the outro. So, okay. Well, what I'll do is we'll go through each section, and then I'll run through each section all over again, and rinse, repeat, right? So, intro. I love this intro. So you got that E chord, which is pinky finger first string, second fret, open second string, index finger on the first fret of the third string, ring finger on the second fret of the fourth string, and you don't really need to do that one, but I don't know, I have it on there for stability, you could say. So it's open fourth string and then hammer on with that ring finger to the second fret. Okay, 3 times. And then you use your other fingers here to play those 3 treble strings on the E chord. Then with this finger on the 5th string, not the 6th, where it's been resting, you do open 5th, hammer on to 2nd, just once, then open 5th, and then 2nd fret of the 6th. Alright, and then, so you're playing pretty constant treble strings on this as well as the bass line, so that's all of the intro right there. So the first few lines are nice and easy, and then it speeds up quite fast. So we'll look at that beginning again. So open 4th, hammer on to 2nd 3 times. Then you play the rest of that E chord on the top 3 strings. 2nd fret of the 1st, open 2nd string, and 1st fret of the 3rd string. Open 5th, hammer on to 2nd, open 5th again, and then second on the 6th string. Then you play your treble strings again. Then you do that little hammer-on figure. So open 4th, hammer-on to 2nd 3 times. Treble strings again. And now instead of hammering on the 5th string to the 2nd, you bend without hammering on at all. So 2nd string bend, only a little bend, maybe not even that much, like that. Then open 5th, 2nd fret of the 6th, and then treble strings. So you're playing the same thing twice almost. It's 2 different ways of playing a very similar riff. So moving on to the 2nd line, it's open 3rd string, 2nd fret of the 4th string, pull off to open, 2nd fret of the 5th string, open 5th string, and then 2nd fret of the 6th string. So this whole thing is just hammering on and pulling off from the E chord. Although technically when those, at the time you're only playing that one note, but really that's a, I think that's a G chord, because you do use the 3 open treble strings in this quite a bit. So, continuing with the 2nd line, after that treble strike there, you slide from the 2nd to the 4th on the 5th string, and you do that twice. Then open 4th string, then a treble, 1st, 2nd and 3rd strings open, so, and then you repeat the repeat the riff from the end of the 1st line. So bend on the 2nd fret 5th string, open 5th, 2nd fret of the 6th, and then continue with the treble strings of the E chord. So here's those 2 lines played together at a slow pace. So, if you're following on still, now we play open G strings. So that is the 3rd string open and the 5th string open. And then we hammer on the 6th string to the 2nd fret. And then we play just the 5th string open. And then the 1st, 2nd and 3rd strings again open. So that line goes. The same, or the first part of the end riff of the 1st line and 2nd line. 2nd fret 5th string bend, open 5th string, 2nd fret of the 6th string, and that's where the similarities end because it changes. So that line so far, so it doesn't change really by much, it's just which strings you're playing. So instead of playing just the treble, 3 strings here on the bottom, you want to play all 4 including the 4th string, and probably use your thumb for the 4th string as the bass. So 2nd fret 5th string bend, open 5th string, 2nd fret the 6th string, and then you play top 4 strings 3 times. Now there's a bit of a strum here, and it's the treble strings open, so you play that twice, down and then back up, and then you come up to the 5th and 4th strings and you play a double stop open. So it's could just go across the whole, all 5 strings if you like, but the way I play it generally is. So after that we bend on the 3rd string 2nd fret, then open 3rd string, and then we hammer on with all 3 of the fretted positions in the E chord. So 1st string 2nd fret, 3rd string 1st fret. Sorry, it is 4, yes, because I've included the 6th string on there. You don't have to play the 6th string, you could leave that. So 2nd fret of the 4th, 1st fret of the 3rd, 2nd fret of the 1st strings, hammer on, and then you strum that chord including the open 2nd string. And that's the end of the intro. So I'll do that again slowly. And then it sort of comes back in on the loop, where, see this little bit of the that is the end of each verse, and it comes back on this loop where the beginning of each verse starts pretty much the same. So that's the intro. Verse 1, the first line, we're still on that E chord, so 2nd fret 1st string, open 2nd string, 1st fret of the 3rd string, 2nd fret of the 4th string. Play that twice. So we'll do this with context to the end of the last riff. So hammer on, play like that, and then you play the same chord, but not as fast. And then it's open 1st, 2nd, 3rd, open 5th, 4th, and 3rd, and then we do that bend on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, then open 2nd and 3rd strings, and then back to that E chord, played 3 times. So far, including the end of the last riff. And this is where we get into where Bobo starts singing, "Well, I wish I was a catfish." So it's 3rd string 2nd fret, slide up to the 4th fret, then play the 2nd fret again, so it's, and then 1st fret 3rd string, hammer on the 2nd fret on the 1st and the 4th strings, and then you play, so you're slowly making up that E chord again. You're already playing the 3rd string, hammer on the 1st and 4th strings, and now you strum that last open string with the rest of those strings. And on the last time you try and avoid that 1st string, so that's the 3rd time. Oh sorry, no you don't, as well as that you pull off this finger on the 4th string to open and avoid that 1st string as well. So it's the 2nd, 3rd and 4th strings of the E chord you're playing with the 4th string open. And then you hammer back onto the 2nd fret, and then you play the chord once more. And then you do a very similar little riff. So this is the 2nd line of the 1st verse now. Slide from the 2nd to the 4th fret on the 3rd string, 1st fret again on the 3rd, hammer on to the 2nd fret of the 4th string, and now you're playing an E dominant 7, so not the E major chord from before. In fact, we did just play this now when we hammered on. So the E7 is basically open first string for the E chord. So not, but very bluesy. Right, so second line of the first verse begins like the middle of the first line. So here's that E7, so you play, so that's 5 times in total, and then you do 2nd fret, slide up to the 4th fret on the 3rd string, and then open 2nd string, and then slide from the 3rd to the 5th on the 2nd string, and now you do a sort of little alternate picking between 2 notes that are the same but on different strings, so they're in unison. So it's slide from the 3rd to the 5th on the 2nd, then 2nd fret of the 1st string, and then starting with the 5th fret of the 2nd string, and then going to the alternate, you play it 6 times, so 5th, 2nd, 5th, 2nd, 5th, 2nd. And then back to that 3rd string, slide from the 2nd to the 4th, and then down to the 2nd again. And then instead of making the chord down here, you're doing it up at the 4th and 6th frets. So 3rd string, 4th fret, 6th fret of the 4th, so that you can reach the 5th fret on the 1st string. And you do a little bit of a bend on that, and you've got to try not to bend it off the fretboard because it's a bit of an awkward position. And then after the 3rd bend, you play the 5th fret of the 2nd string, and then hammer on the 3rd string at the 7th fret, and then on the 5th fret of the 2nd, where you should still have your finger, play that and slide down, then open 2nd and 3rd, 3rd string, slide from the 2nd to the 4th, then you want the 3rd fret of the 2nd string again, then double stop, so 2 together, 5th and 4th strings open, then open 3rd string, 2nd fret of the 3rd string, and you pull off. So 2nd fret, 3rd string, pull off to open. So looking at the 2nd line and the 3rd line together, it's 2nd to 4th on the 3rd string, then 2nd again, then 1st, then hammer on, making that E7 chord on the 4th string, and then play E7 on all 4 strings. Then it's 2nd to 4th again on the 3rd, open 2nd, slide 3rd to 5th on the 2nd, and then you've got that little alternating 2nd fret 1st string, 5th fret 2nd string. Back to the similar riff, 2nd to 4th on the 3rd string again and back. And then it's 6th fret 4th string, 4th fret 3rd string, and then 5th fret of the 1st, 5th fret of the 2nd, hammer on to 7th fret of the 3rd string, and then 5th fret 2nd string, slide down, open 2nd and 3rd, 3rd string, slide from the 2nd to the 4th, 3rd fret of the 2nd string, open 5th and 4th, open 3rd, 2nd, pull off. And it's not that kind of speed hammer on pull off for this, although it is in the next riff, but this one is, you kind of hold it for a bit, and and the pull-off is just a sort of tiny little inflection just before the next note. So that's the first half of the first verse. So we'll go through just those 3 lines now, and I'll do it slowly for you. So this is from the beginning of verse 1. To the second part of the first verse. 4th string, 2nd fret, so that E chord again, then pull off to open, then, sorry, that's the 3rd string, talking out my arse. So that last bit before open 3rd string, 2nd fret of the 3rd string, pull off to open, then you do the same, but you do it at that faster pace now. So 2nd fret, 3rd string, pull off to open like that. And then immediately after that you do the 4th string, open. And then hammer on both the 6th and the 4th strings at the 2nd fret. And have these fingers ready to make up that E chord again, because you go straight back in with that. No, that's the next line. So it's second. No, I'm way off. Okay, yeah. Hammer on the 6th and 4th on the 2nd, and then you play the E chord on the top 4 strings just once. Then the 4th string open. 5th string you slide up to the 4th, doesn't matter where you start, probably 2nd fret I guess, and then open 4th string again, and then open 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Now back to that familiar riff. 5th string, 2nd fret, bend slightly, opens 5th fret, 2nd fret of the 6th string, and then the top 4 strings playing that E chord. And then it's a sort of slowed down version of the very first riff. So instead of playing 3 times, you play it just twice and a bit slower. So that's open 4th string, hammer on to the 2nd fret. Then that familiar 2nd fret, 5th string, bend a little bit and play open. Then 2nd fret of the 6th, play the top 4 strings in that E chord, then 3rd, 4th string open, slide up to 4th fret on the 5th, then open 4th string again. So that's pretty much the same as the previous riff that we just did. Because then you play those 3 open strings again, 1st, 2nd and 3rd. Except, yeah, it doesn't change yet. So again, 5th string, 2nd fret bend, open 5th string, 2nd fret of the 6th string, play the top 4 strings in that E chord. And now instead of going, it's open 5th string, then hammer on the 2nd fret, the 6th string, then open 5th string again, and play those top 3 open strings. Now this is where I almost got to earlier. So bend on the 2nd fret of the 2 G strings, so 3rd string and 5th string, open 3rd and 5th strings, then hammer on the 2nd fret on the 6th and 4th strings. So with these two fingers you're doing that little movement there, but you want to keep these other ones, the index finger and pinky finger, where they are on these places here, while these are up here. So after you've hammered onto the 2nd fret, 6th and 4th strings, it's that E chord again, top 4 strings, play once, play another 3 times like that, and then it's open top 3 strings, double stop on the 5th and 4th open, and then bend on the 3rd string, 2nd fret, open, back to the E chord again, 3 times, another 2 times, and now open, all just open, 5th, 4th and 3rd once, and then 2nd, 3rd and 4th 2 times. So again, that's just a rough estimate. So, and that takes us to the final part of verse 1 riff, which is 3rd string, bend on the 2nd fret, open 3rd string, and then play the E chord. So here's verse 1. So while each verse is a little bit different, that is the bare bones of the song. Other than that, you've got the outro, which is again, you're just doing the E chord with a little bit of a turnaround on it. I'm not going to stop there though, because there are enough differences in there to warrant going through where the differences are. So you could, if you want to do like a poor man's version of playing that song, you could just repeat that all the way through and not do any excuse me, and not do any variations whatsoever. But I'm going to show you the variations and where they are. So before we do that, I'll just play the verse through slowly for you, because I did do that at full speed just then. And I'll take it from the intro, and then I'll slow down. Okay, so this is verse 1 now. Sorry, I should take the auto scroll off now. So that's the intro and verse 1 played slow for you. Now verse 2 starts the same as verse 1 in that little loop of... So verse 2, E chord, open, so G I guess, 5th, 4th and 3rd strings, then 2nd, 3rd and 4th. You know this is what we've just done. So 2nd fret the 3rd string, open 2nd and 3rd, E chord again, and then that intro intro's the same, sorry, that first part of the verse, end of the first line's the same. E7, still the same. Now it changes. So instead of just playing this once, so that's 6th fret of the 4th string, 4th fret of the 3rd string, you play that 4th fret of the 3rd string once more, and then it's, instead of play this 3 times bending, instead of going down to that 2nd string 5th fret, you go 5th fret bend, 5th fret bend, and then 5th fret pull off to 2nd fret, and then pull off again to open, and then 2nd fret 1st string again, then open 2nd string, 2nd fret 1st string. Then slide from the 2nd to the 4th on the 3rd string, 3rd fret of the 2nd string, so we know this riff, open 5th and 4th, back to the 3rd string, and then the second part is almost always the same, I think, so continues. So I'll play that verse for you slowly. Verse 3, I believe. Okay, so there is a variation on the second line. So after we start the verse, so this is the same. E7's the same. Now this is the bit that changes. So instead of doing your 2nd to 4th on the 3rd string like usual, or like that, it's bend up to the to what would be the 3rd fret. So on the 2nd fret, bend, but don't play the note. Bend before you play the note. So hold it up there. This is what I was getting wrong earlier. You probably saw. Hold it, and R means release. So release from 3rd to 2nd. Like that. And then the riff continues pretty much the same, I think. So slide 3rd to 5th, 2nd string, then 2nd fret of the 1st string, and then you just alternate between those 2 notes, or that 1 note on 2 strings. And then even this next, so the 3rd line of verse 2 and 3 is the same. So what I've just said from verse 2. And then the end of the verse, as usual, exactly the same. So perceptive amongst you might notice I'm saying that these verses are all the same at the end, and you might see that the length of bars and staves is different. Yes, very well spotted if you spotted that. They are all a little bit different on the end, but the only difference is literally how many times you repeat that little loop, that little looped riff. And if you're playing this with a harmonica player, or somebody who can do a nice little solo, then that would be a good time to just let them go off and do their thing and just literally keep your riff going. You could have a nice little jam out of that. Anyway, don't let me tell you what to do. Moving on, so I'll do verse 3 slowly so you can hear the differences and pick it up. Is the same, but the amount of times it loops is different. And then we're on to verse 4. So again, verse 4 starts exactly the same. E chord, open, bend on the 3rd string, 2nd fret, open, back to the E, and then this riff. And now it's pretty much the same as the last time with the hold and release on the 2nd fret. So bend to 3rd, release, and then open 2nd and 3rd string this time. And then same as before, so 2nd string, slide 3rd to 5th, 1st string, 2nd fret, and then 6 times in total. And then we go back to the first version of the 3rd line. So 3rd string, slide from 2nd to 4th and back, and then 6th fret of the 4th string, 4th fret of the 3rd string. But instead of playing that 4th fret of the 3rd string again, you leave a little bit of a gap. So, and then you play those 3 bends on the 5th fret, and then down to the 5th fret on the 2nd string. Sorry, that was the 1st string. Hammer on the 7th fret of the 3rd string. 5th fret, 2nd string, slide down, and release to open 2nd and 3rd strings. Slide 2nd to 3rd, 2nd to 4th on the 3rd string, and now we're back to stuff that we've done. See, now that one's short, that only has about 2 loops. So I'll play that whole thing slow again for you, because it is, again, it is slightly different, so I'll give you a bit of a hand. So. Verse 5, which is the last verse. Again, starts exactly the same as the others. Just like the first verse, slide second to fourth on the third string, open second, and now this riff you should be used to, slide third to fifth on the second string, second fret of the first, and then again on the next one it's just as the first verse, so third string, slide second to fourth, back to the second, and then first, and then hammer onto the second fret of the fourth string. That's what happens when you don't pay attention. Just covered that. So it's when you look at the tab, you will see it's very easy to get confused between the riffs because they all share very similar little figures in there, like, and yeah, it's very easy to get lost. So hopefully, maybe my cut down live stream highlights version might be a bit easier to follow than this actual stream. Right, so it was actually third string, slide second to fourth, second fret again, then you play the 6 and 4, so 6th fret of the fourth string, 4th fret of the third, bend on the first two iterations of this 5th fret first string, and then 5th fret first string, no bend, 5th fret second string, hammer on 7th fret for the third string, keeping that 5th fret on the second string, slide down from there, open second and third, we know all this, third fret, second and fourth, open, and this is where it links into the outro. So that last little bit there is 5th fret bend on the, sorry, 5th string bend on the 2nd fret, open 5th string, 2nd fret of the 6th string, then open 2nd and 3rd strings, and now it's the 2nd string stays open during this outro. It's a little bit of a turnaround sort of sound. So you slide on the 3rd string up to the 4th fret while you play open 2nd string, and you play the 2nd fret of the 1st string immediately after that, and then you go back to playing the 2nd and 3rd strings, so 4th fret 3rd string, open 2nd, then you move from the 4th fret of the 3rd string down to the 3rd fret of the 3rd string, and instead of alternating, you play twice, and then 2nd fret 1st string. Carrying on, descending line from the 4th to the 3rd, now to the 2nd. So 2nd fret 3rd string, open 2nd string, 2nd fret of the 1st string, and you do that same little sound as before, so 2, and then that one. So in total for the outro, and then open 2nd and 3rd strings, and then hammer on to the 1st fret of the 3rd. Then you play 2nd fret of the 1st string, open 2nd string. Then you play open 2nd string, 1st fret of the 3rd string. So this is all just going around that E chord again, an E7 sort of. And then bringing that finger back, so you're doing all 4 strings, but it's not E now, it's E7. So 2nd fret, 4th string, 1st fret of the 3rd string, open 2nd and 1st strings, and then you let that go for a beat or two, play the top 3 strings, open 1st and 2nd, 1st fret of the 3rd, and let that go for just another beat before you play them and stop them. And that's the end of the song. Slowly. So, I've given you the story, I've given you the tab. Should I risk trying to go through it once more, knowing that it doesn't scroll at the right speed? If I put the speed up, will it go jerky or will it be okay? So let's try 1.1 speed. So I'm going to give it a try. You get one more rendition out of me before the end of the stream. So let's give it a go. Catfish Blues, I Wish I Was a Catfish. Bobo Thomas, 1951, recorded by Trumpet Records of Jackson, Mississippi. Not Jacksonville, not Jackson City, Jackson, Mississippi. So hopefully there's been the odd person watching, so thank you guys. I don't know if any of you are still there who were watching from before. I hope that's been enlightening for you. I'm pretty proud of my tab. First person I've seen to tab that anywhere, so whoop-de-doo. What have we got then for you that I can say before we end? So obviously I've just put up the Special Rider Blues history and performance video to preface the lessons, which I don't know how many views that's going to have. It was getting a good few views coming in from Reddit and Facebook groups earlier, so we'll see how many more are viewed in the meantime. Next week on my calendar, I've got that we're going to learn a cigar box guitar song. So I still haven't restrung. I haven't seen this in a while, guys. The old cigar box guitar. So I still haven't restrung this, and I don't know if you can really see that, but when the weather changed in the summer, and I've said this story quite a few times, but when the weather changed, the strings on all my guitars went fucking haywire and just rusted up almost overnight. And this was just after the Rick and Morty video, lesson video. And literally overnight they just sort of got this nasty coating, and I think it's just from the humidity. But yeah, the weather's changed again. I don't think it's going to be warming up much anytime soon. If anything, it's just going to be getting colder. So it's probably time to restring both my other guitars. Strings are okay on the acoustic guitar for now, thankfully. Yeah, both of those guitars can get a tune-up and then a restring. And then I could probably start using them for a few videos, so we'll maybe do a live stream of just pissing about with some jam track or some crap like that, or I do have an idea for a cigar box guitar video, which would involve cigar box guitar, GarageBand drums, maybe the electric guitar or the acoustic guitar, I'm not sure yet, and perhaps melodica in place of harmonica. I'd see what kind of a jam I can jam with myself, and kind of like Smooth McGroove, if anyone's seen him, he does awesome video game a cappella where he divides the video into the screen into segments, and he just does all the musical parts himself. It's great. So I think that's about it for tonight, guys. A little bit shorter than usual. I didn't quite realise just how much the song had repeating parts, but that's good. It makes it a bit more straightforward to learn. So yeah, as I said, next week, cigar box guitar video. It's gonna be Feel Like Going Home by Muddy Waters, which is the other version of country blues, but I've tabbed it for cigar box guitar, and it doesn't sound too bad. I mean, I assume so. It didn't sound too good because the strings are naff, but hopefully once I've restrung it, it shouldn't sound too bad at all. So there we are. I'll get that uploaded to Ultimate Guitar, hopefully in time for next week. We'll maybe do some more streams throughout the week, I'm not sure. Some more evening streams. Not with any blues lessons, like I've got a schedule of blues songs which I've been working on. I'm thinking I might do a second live stream on another evening where we can just mess around and do, like I said in the other one, we'll just try and work out standard, like popular standard songs, work out the open G chords for them, just get you used to transposing, I guess it would be, transposing songs from one tuning to the other. So stay tuned for that sometime within the next week, and Feel Like Going Home cigar box guitar lesson this time next week. Also stay tuned for the short videos which I make out of these live streams. Oh, I haven't done a grovelling bit for a while, have I? I usually forget to do that, so leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel, that really helps me out. I'm just about to hit 30 subscribers. I don't know if anybody, no one's subscribed while we're doing the stream. Next person who subs will be the 30th subscriber. We're just short of 2,500 views as well, so that's 2 milestones that we're about to hit. These live streams and the broken down videos seem to be hitting the spot. You guys seem to like them, so I'm going to keep doing them. If you want to support the channel, I've got a Streamlabs account as well. I should probably have said that at the beginning of the stream, not that there's been anyone here to... Roaming Dead has just subscribed, just as I say, I've got Streamlabs on, I get the update on the screen. Hopefully that came up on the screen for you guys as well. Thank you for the sub, Roaming Dead. I will most likely sub back to you when I finish the stream and see what stuff you got, if you've got any videos. Like I said, appreciate any support. I'm obviously a very small channel at the moment. Need those numbers to go up soon, but they are. People are enjoying these videos, so it's good. So yeah, Streamlabs, Regulus Blues. You can donate there if you want to, or become a member. I might get some merch up there at some point, maybe Regulus logo on a hoodie, if anyone wants that, a t-shirt. Twitter, we are Regulus_music. Don't really use Twitter that much, but you know, it's nice to have followers. Facebook, Regulus Recording Co. You can find links to all of our social media on the YouTube page, so that whether that's through the app or on a desktop, we have Google Plus, which again I don't really use that either. Apparently it's really big for networking, but like I said, I don't really use it, so I wouldn't know. So Streamlabs, Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus. We've got a SoundCloud account. I don't have any music up on there yet. I haven't recorded anything in years. And we also have a Reverb Nation account, which is about as useful as a chocolate teapot because it's a record label account, so you can't really do anything on there. I haven't tried to in a while, but those are our social media. Go follow us on there if you want to stay up to date with everything. So I will see you guys in the next live stream, which will be sometime during the week. Until then, take it steady, have a good one. I'll see you soon. Bye.